Welcome to my channel, USA Battle Zone. Today, I'm about to tell you a story that will leave your heart racing, your palms sweating, and your faith in ordinary heroes completely renewed. Because sometimes, the most unassuming person, the quiet one sitting in row 9, can be the difference between life and death. This is the story of an ordinary woman, who, for one impossible moment, became a hero at 30,000 feet above the clouds. Movie camera, scene fades in, cloudy sky, sound of engines humming, seatbelt chime. Her name was Maggie Ross, a mother of 2 from Denver. She wasn't a soldier, she wasn't a pilot, she wasn't even the kind of person who liked to take risks. In fact, Maggie hated flying. That morning, she almost didn't board Flight 238 from Dallas to Seattle. She'd had a bad feeling, one of those gut instincts you can't explain. She told her husband on the phone, "I'll text you when we land." Promise. He laughed it off, but Maggie's hand trembled as she pressed send. Row 9, window seat. She settled in with her coffee, trying to relax. Next to her sat a teenage boy wearing noise-canceling headphones. Across the aisle, an older couple held hands as they flipped through a travel magazine. Everything looked normal, everything felt normal, until 47 minutes after takeoff. Musical note, music shifts. Soft tension build, mechanical whirring fades in. The first sound was subtle, a pop, like a car door slamming far away. The plane shuddered slightly, a few heads turned. Then came the bang. The aircraft jolted, the overhead bins rattled, a few screams erupted as the plane dipped suddenly to the right. A moment later, the captain's voice cut through the cabin speakers, calm but tight, the kind of calm that hides panic. Greater than, "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. We're experiencing a minor technical issue. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened." But Maggie knew that wasn't minor. She could hear it, the engine on the right wing sputtering like a dying heart. Movie camera cut to cockpit, flashing lights, alarms beeping, co-pilot flipping switches. Inside the cockpit, Captain Will Hawk Henderson, a former Air Force pilot, was fighting to keep the plane stable. Engine 2 had failed, hydraulics were losing pressure, and the backup navigation computer had just glitched. "Autopilot's gone," his co-pilot shouted. "Manual control only." The captain wiped the sweat from his brow. "Mayday! Mayday! This is Flight 238. We've lost our right engine and primary hydraulics. Request immediate emergency landing." But ground control came back with static. The signal was dropping. They were flying over mountainous terrain, no flat land for miles. The captain looked down at his instruments, and his stomach dropped. The hydraulic line feeding the rudder was failing. He couldn't steer properly. If they couldn't stabilize the plane in 10 minutes, they'd lose control completely. Studio microphone narrator. And then, something impossible happened. As the captain checked his systems again, he noticed a small tag under one of the old maintenance logs, left from a previous flight. Scrawled in black ink were 4 letters, MRF-16. He frowned. MRF-16. His eyes widened. No, it couldn't be. He turned to his co-pilot. "Row 9, he said. "Get me row 9, now." Movie camera cut back to cabin. Flight attendants rushing, turbulence shaking cups. A flight attendant, pale-faced, hurried down the aisle. "Excuse me, are you Maggie Ross?" she asked, breathless. Maggie blinked. "Yes, I am. The captain needs you, in the cockpit." The passengers nearby looked confused. "What's going on?" someone asked. But Maggie barely heard them. Her heart was pounding so hard she could taste metal. In the blur of motion and fear, she followed the attendant up the aisle. Each step felt unreal, like walking through someone else's nightmare. When she reached the cockpit, the captain turned around, and his face broke into a look of astonished relief. Movie camera, cinematic slow motion, light flickers, alarms blinking red. "Maggie Ross," he said. She nodded, confused. He smiled weakly. "Or should I say, Major Ross." Her eyes widened. It had been 10 years since anyone called her that. 10 years since she'd left the Air Force. 10 years since she'd touched a cockpit. She'd flown F-16s. She'd led missions. She'd even been on standby during the Iraq conflict. But that was another life. She'd buried that part of herself the day she promised her kids she'd never fly again. And now, fate was dragging her back. Studio microphone narrator. The captain explained the situation. The hydraulic failure, the malfunctioning system, the loss of control. He needed her help, not just as a passenger, but as a pilot. The co-pilot had to manage communications and systems. The captain needed someone who could help handle manual stabilization, someone who knew military-style control under failure conditions. And the only one on board who could do that was sitting in row 9. Movie camera, scene intensifies, plane shaking violently, alarms blaring. Maggie strapped into the jump seat. Her hands trembled as she grabbed the yoke. The feel of it, solid, alive, heavy, brought a rush of memories. Her old call sign echoed in her head, Falcon. The captain glanced at her. Welcome back, Falcon. Her lips trembled into a half-smile. Let's bring her home. Musical note, music swells, strings rising, drums faint. Below them, the world was a patchwork of forest and mountain. The altimeter ticked down. 24,000 feet, 20,000. The plane listed again. Hydraulic B lines gone. The co-pilot shouted. They were losing control of the right wing. Manual trim, now. Maggie barked. Her old instincts took over like muscle memory. She reached over, adjusted the controls by feel, and used differential thrust, easing one engine while boosting the other, to keep them level. The captain's eyes widened. You still got it, he muttered. Maggie didn't answer. She was locked in, focused, her mind pure calculation and rhythm. Get me a heading to Spokane, she said. It's the closest runway long enough for a heavy bird. Already on it, the co-pilot replied. Movie camera, cabin scene. Oxygen masks sway, passengers crying quietly. In the cabin, fear had spread like wildfire. Children were crying. A woman clutched her rosary. The old couple in row 10 whispered prayers under their breath. No one knew what was happening in the cockpit. No one knew that a mother, not a pilot in uniform, not a soldier, was at the controls, fighting gravity itself. Studio microphone narrator. Minutes passed like hours. Each second was a battle. The pressure, the alarms, the sheer weight of lives depending on one woman, it was crushing. But Maggie didn't think about herself. She thought about her kids. She thought about the promise she made, I'll text you when I land. And she whispered to herself, I intend to keep that promise. Musical note, music lowers to heartbeat pace, steady, anxious. Altitude 12,000, the captain said. Runways 10 miles out. Too high, too fast, Maggie murmured. She looked at the terrain. Jagged peaks, narrow valleys. They couldn't risk a steep descent or they'd tear apart. Then she saw it. A break in the clouds, a narrow glide path. Cut right engine to idle, she ordered. Deploy partial flaps. Are you sure? Trust me. The captain obeyed. The plane shuddered violently, then steadied. Beautiful, the co-pilot whispered. Movie camera, exterior shot. Plane descending through storm clouds, lightning flashes. Rain lashed against the windows. Visibility dropped. Maggie squinted through the windshield. Runway in sight. The co-pilot called. Speed 180, 160. The landing gear creaked as it dropped. One light stayed red. Front gears not locking. The captain said. Maggie gritted her teeth. We'll take it on the belly if we have to. The captain glanced at her. You sure about this? She nodded. I didn't come this far to give up now. Musical note, music crescendos, emotional swell, heart pounding. They approached the runway. Nose slightly high, sparks flying as the gear scraped against the asphalt. The impact slammed everyone forward. The wings groaned under the strain. The plane skidded, veering slightly to the right. Brake assist gone. The co-pilot yelled. Reverse thrust. Maggie shouted. The engines roared. Smoke billowed from the tires. The plane screeched across the rain-soaked runway, until finally, mercifully, it stopped. For a moment, there was nothing. Just silence. Then, a single cheer. Then another, and another. Within seconds, the cabin erupted in tears and applause. People were hugging strangers. A little boy whispered, "We're alive." Movie camera, cockpit. Maggie exhales shakily, hands trembling. Maggie leaned back, tears in her eyes. Her hands still gripped the yoke like a lifeline. The captain turned to her. "Falcon, you just saved 212 souls." She gave a tired smile. "No, we all did. Studio microphone narrator, soft, reverent. When emergency crews opened the cockpit door, they didn't find a uniformed hero. They found a woman in a sweater, trembling, eyes red with tears, a woman who had once served, once sacrificed, and once thought her days of courage were over. But courage never leaves you. It waits, quietly, until the world needs it again. Movie camera cut to exterior, plane on runway, emergency lights flashing, passengers walking out into rain. Hours later, as passengers were evacuated, the captain stood beside Maggie on the tarmac. "You ever think of coming back?" he asked. She laughed softly. "I already did." He nodded, and for a moment they just watched the dawn break over the horizon, light spilling across the wet ground, golden and unreal. Studio microphone narrator. News outlets would later call her the angel in row 9. Her story spread across the country, interviews, headlines, documentaries. But Maggie didn't chase the fame. She went home. She hugged her children tighter than ever. And that night, when she finally texted her husband, she simply wrote, "Greater than, we landed." He never knew the full story until weeks later. But he could hear it in her voice. The quiet pride, the weight of what she'd carried. Musical note, soft piano outro begins, emotional tone. Maggie Ross was just an ordinary woman. But when the moment came, she answered a call sign she'd left behind. And in doing so, she reminded the world of something powerful. Heroes aren't born, they're remembered, when they choose to rise again. Clapperboard, cinematic fade to black, text appears. An ordinary woman in row 9, based on true events. Studio microphone narrator, final words, gentle. Thank you for watching this story on USA Battle Zone. If this story moved you, if it made you believe again in the quiet strength of ordinary people, then please, like, comment, and subscribe. Because heroes walk among us every day, and their stories deserve to be told.